Picture the exact moment you wake up tomorrow with real fire running quietly through every single vein in your body. Not groggy, not foggy, not dragging yourself out of bed feeling like you spent all night trapped underwater far away. Your mind moves like a laser, and your body feels like it could genuinely punch straight through a brick wall. That is not some fantasy printed on the label of a supplement bottle. That is biology firing on every cylinder. That is what testosterone actually feels like the moment your entire system stops sabotaging itself day after day after day. But if we are honest, most men alive today cannot even remember the last time they felt anything close to. Instead, you drag yourself out of bed every single morning like your limbs are moving through wet cement and fog. There is a thick haze sitting between your ears that refuses to lift, no matter how much coffee you drink. By 2 in the afternoon, you are hunting for caffeine or sugar just to stay conscious through the entire day. You catch your own reflection in the mirror and wonder where exactly that dangerous, hungry version of yourself disappeared to. So, you did what everyone told you to do because it sounded scientific and every fitness guru repeated it endlessly. You eat breakfast, then a snack, then lunch, then another snack, then dinner, and one more snack before finally sleeping. You've heard it 1,000 times from every gym bro holding a protein shaker like it was sacred scripture. Eat every 3 hours to keep your metabolism roaring and to keep your testosterone sitting high above the danger line. Except, here's the uncomfortable question absolutely nobody in that gym has ever bothered asking you directly to your face. What if that constant, unbroken stream of food is drowning the very engine you are so desperately trying to fuel? What if never once hitting pause on eating is creating a silent biological catastrophe inside your own bloodstream right now? Let me introduce you properly to the real villain that has been living quietly inside your bloodstream this entire time. Its name is chronic insulin, and when you eat every few hours all day long, insulin never gets to drop. It stays elevated constantly, hovering like a wet, heavy blanket thrown directly over your entire delicate hormonal control system. And here is exactly where the story turns sinister, because insulin does not simply sit around storing stubborn body fat. It actively blocks the precise signaling pathway your brain relies on to communicate directly with your own testicles. Your hypothalamus keeps sending the same desperate message: produce more testosterone right now, over and over, into total silence. But insulin stands directly in the middle of that conversation like an oversized bouncer refusing entry at a crowded club. The signal never actually gets through the door, and your testicles just sit there waiting for orders that never arrive. This has quietly become a battle for your own biological sovereignty, whether you realized it was happening or truly not. You can lift every single weight in gym and swallow every zinc, ashwagandha, and Tongkat Ali capsule known to man, but if the signaling itself is broken down at the root, you are rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship. Now, maybe you already tried intermittent fasting once before, made it through the first rough week and felt absolutely miserable. Your energy tanked, your libido vanished without warning, and you quietly quit, convinced this fasting thing was one big scam. But here's the twist that almost nobody sticks around long enough to actually discover for themselves the hard way. What happens to your testosterone after day 30 looks nothing at all like what happens back on day 3. Most men give up and quit right before their own biological reboot is finally about to fully kick in. So let's walk directly through the fire together, step by uncomfortable step, exactly the way it really, truly, genuinely happens. Picture yourself on day 5 of your fasting window, feeling flatter than a panic-sold stock portfolio during a crash. Your muscles look smaller in the mirror, your mood is sitting deep in the gutter, and your libido has vanished. You look at your own reflection and think, of course my testosterone is dropping. I am starving myself right now. Here is the single most important sentence I can possibly say to you at this exact moment, so listen closely. You are not broken, and you are not failing, because this uncomfortable stretch is the process doing what it should. Almost every man who quits does it right here, right in the middle of what I call the stress gap. When you suddenly cut your eating window short, your body does not immediately understand this decision was intentional at all. All it knows is food has become scarce, and in the ancient wiring of your nervous system, scarcity means danger. So your adrenal glands respond by pumping out cortisol like a fire hose, aimed directly at your entire nervous system. Now here is exactly where the underlying biology turns genuinely brutal for anyone who has never understood this process before. Testosterone and cortisol are locked together in an inverse relationship, sitting on completely opposite ends of the very same seesaw. When one of them rises, the other one is forced to come down, whether your body likes it or not. Your body is making a choice: invest energy into reproduction and muscle, or invest it into pure short-term survival. And survival wins that particular argument every single time, no matter how frustrating that feels from where you are standing. Researchers call this exact phenomenon gonadotropin suppression. And while it is completely real, it is also genuinely, provably, truly temporary. This is what I like to call the hunter's ancient anxiety. Not simply a malfunction, but a built-in feature. When your distant ancestors could not find any food, their bodies deliberately made them irritable, restless, and constantly hyper-alert. That cortisol spike existed to sharpen their focus and keep them moving until they finally tracked down the next kill. Here is the exact analogy that finally helped this entire confusing process click properly inside my own head years ago. Imagine you are renovating your kitchen, and before any of new beauty arrives, you have to endure the demolition phase. Sledgehammers swinging, dust clouds everywhere, total visible chaos. And your kitchen somehow looks worse than it did before you started. But that mess is not destruction at all. That mess is necessary preparation for everything that is about to come. And that uncomfortable cortisol spike you are feeling right now, that is exactly your own personal demolition phase in progress. Studies published in respected journals, like the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, have documented this exact phenomenon in detail. Short-term fasting causes a temporary dip in testosterone as cortisol rises sharply during those first difficult days of adjustment. And here is the part almost everyone forgets to mention, because the operative word in all of this is temporary. Once your system realizes you are not starving to death, once it understands you are running on a different rhythm, everything begins to change and the cortisol starts to clear, and that is when the real machinery finally turns on. Welcome now to the other side. Somewhere between week 2 and week 4 of your consistent, committed fasting Pruli practice, something has shifted inside you, because that fog that once sat heavy on your chest has now completely, quietly disappeared. You wake up and your mind feels clear, sharp, almost alert, in a way you have not felt in years. And your energy is not back, it is fundamentally different from anything you have felt before, calmer and more steady. This is not the jittery spike and crash energy you used to get from coffee, sugar, and endless refined carbohydrates. This new energy is steady and relentless. And here is the part confuses most men once they reach this stage. Your testosterone levels on a fresh blood test might not look different from where they were before this all began. Maybe they climbed slightly, maybe they stayed exactly the same, yet somehow you feel like a different, sharper man entirely. So what is going on beneath the surface that a simple blood test could never fully show you on paper? This is where the real magic actually lives, and it has almost nothing to do with total testosterone levels alone. It is about how sensitive your individual cells actually are to the testosterone that is already circulating through your bloodstream. Your cells carry tiny docking stations called receptors, and testosterone binds to those receptors to deliver its full biological message. When testosterone locks properly into those receptors, that is precisely when you feel the strength, the drive, and the aggression. But when insulin stays chronically elevated from constant non-stop eating, those same receptors gradually go numb and stop listening entirely. It is like they are wearing noise-canceling headphones because there is far too much insulin noise cluttering every signal. Fasting effectively rips those headphones straight off, and suddenly your androgen receptors wake back up and become hyper-responsive again. Even completely average testosterone levels start hitting you like a freight train once your receptors are finally listening properly again. You are getting significantly more benefit for your buck because efficiency matters as much as raw hormonal quantity ever could. One study at the University of Virginia found men practicing intermittent fasting showed improved androgen receptor expression in muscle tissue. That improvement showed up even when their total testosterone numbers remained completely stable throughout the entire length of the study. You're not necessarily manufacturing more raw hormone, you are learning to use what you already have far more efficiently. But that is still not even close to being the full story unfolding quietly inside your body right truly now. Because while your testosterone sensitivity is steadily climbing, something else entirely remarkable is happening deep within your own pituitary gland. Your growth hormone output explodes, with some studies documenting increases of up to 2,000% during extended fasting windows. Yes, you heard that correctly, 2,000%, a number that sounds almost impossible until you study the research yourself. When you fast for 16 to 24 hours, your pituitary gland begins flooding your entire system with growth hormone. And growth hormone is the unsung hero of male physiology, quietly protecting everything you have worked so hard to build. It is the muscle guardian, preserving your lean mass while your body sits in a genuine caloric deficit every day. It mobilizes stored fat for fuel, and it works synergistically alongside testosterone, meaningfully amplifying nearly every one of its effects. Think of growth hormone and testosterone as trusted business partners working closely together toward one shared, unified physical goal. Testosterone is the architect, quietly designing the muscle, while growth hormone is the construction crew actually building the blueprint properly. Now let's talk honestly about what is happening upstairs, inside your own brain, during any genuinely extended fasting window. When you fast, your brain releases a steady mix of norepinephrine and dopamine that men describe as a hunter's high. You are not manic and you are not anxious. You are simply dialed in, sharp, focused, and completely, calmly present. And evolutionarily speaking, this response makes absolute biological sense once you actually stop and think carefully about truly genuinely it. When food was scarce for your distant ancestors, their bodies could never afford to be sluggish, depressed, or slow-moving. They needed to operate at their cognitive peak in order to hunt, strategize, adapt, and ultimately survive another brutal season. And here is one more crucial piece of this entire puzzle, hiding quietly inside your own stubborn stored body fat. As you steadily lose body fat through consistent fasting, something remarkable begins to happen to your overall hormonal truly profile. Body fat, especially the kind sitting around your belly, contains an enzyme called aromatase that works against your own interests. Aromatase is essentially a testosterone thief, converting your precious hard-earned testosterone directly into estrogen without asking your permission first. The more fat you carry around your midsection, the more testosterone silently gets converted into a hormone no man wants. But as fasting strips away that stubborn visceral fat, your overall aromatase activity naturally drops lower and lower over time. Your testosterone finally stays testosterone, giving you a purer, more potent, and more useful hormonal profile than you had before. It is like plugging a slow, persistent leak inside a dam that has been draining your potential for years now. Now you might be thinking, fine, the hormones sound incredible, but I refuse to shrink away and lose my size. And that brings us to the biggest fear most men carry around fasting, the genuine nightmare scenario they picture constantly. You skip one breakfast, and in your mind, you can practically hear your own biceps screaming as they shrivel up. You have been told your entire lifting life, skipping protein for even 3 hours starts cannibalizing your hard-earned muscle. It has become gospel, it has become unquestioned doctrine, and it also happens to be completely, provably, scientifically wrong information. Let's talk honestly about what actually happens inside your body the moment you genuinely commit to a real extended fast. Yes, your body enters a documented state called autophagy, a word that literally translates from Greek into self-eating directly. And I know that word alone sounds terrifying at first, but here is exactly what they never bother telling you. Your body is not stupid. It is not some panicked machine burning furniture while plenty of firewood sits nearby untouched. Your body has clear priorities, and functional lean muscle tissue is too valuable and useful to sacrifice or destroy first. Think of autophagy as a microscopic cleaning crew finally shows up once you give your digestive system a real break. These tireless cellular janitors move through every single room in your body, hunting carefully for garbage and damaged truly proteins. They find senescent cells, misfolded junk, and dysfunctional mitochondria, then break every bit of it down and recycle it properly. You are not losing precious muscle during this process at all. You are actively refining and quietly upgrading it instead. In fact, this exact process of autophagy is critical to overall human health. It won the Nobel Prize in 2016. And here is the part that should make every man reading or watching this pay very close attention right now. Fasting does not merely preserve your hard-earned gains, it enhances and improves the quality of what you already have. You might look slightly smaller in the mirror during that first week, but you are not losing actual muscle mass. You are losing excess water weight and lingering inflammation that your body had been holding onto for far too long. When your body finally depletes its stored glycogen, you shed the water that was tightly bound to that same glycogen, and what remains underneath all of that is denser, harder, and far more clearly defined muscle than you had before. It is the kind of muscle that looks carved from stone, not soft, puffy, or artificially inflated with excess water. But let's move beyond the mirror completely for just one moment and talk honestly about blood flow and basic hydraulics. Erectile quality is never just about raw testosterone levels alone. It is about whether your vascular system can deliver everything. Fasting dramatically improves what doctors call endothelial function, the delicate inner lining of every blood vessel inside your entire body. When you fast consistently, your body meaningfully increases nitric oxide production, the exact molecule responsible for dilating your blood vessels. Better circulation does not just mean improved performance inside the gym, it genuinely means better performance in every single area. Here is another important detail that almost nobody ever bothers mentioning whenever they casually talk about fasting online these days. Fasting quietly resets your dopamine receptors after years of constant, relentless overstimulation from food, screens, notifications, sugar, and endless caffeine. We live inside a world of non-stop stimulation, food everywhere, screens everywhere, notifications constantly buzzing, porn, sugar, and endless caffeine. Your dopamine system becomes fried and numb over time until nothing seems to excite you the way it once did. Fasting forces a dopamine detox, and when you stop flooding your system with hits of pleasure, everything begins to shift. Suddenly, food tastes genuinely incredible again, intimacy feels electric again, and you find yourself caring deeply about things once more. You want to chase real goals, pursue meaningful challenges, and take calculated risks you would have avoided for way too long. That is not empty motivational fluff at all. That is your own neurochemistry being restored back to its factory settings. So, we have cleared the fog, protected the muscle, sharpened the mind, upgraded the plumbing, and rebuilt your dopamine system. But how do we turn all of this from a 30-day experiment into an actual, sustainable, lifelong strategy now? This was never meant to be a diet at all, because diets are simply prisons with built-in expiration dates. What we are building here is something called metabolic flexibility, and it is the closest thing to a biological superpower. Metabolic flexibility means your body can seamlessly switch between different fuel sources depending on whatever is currently available to it. It can burn glucose whenever it is available, and it can burn stored fat whenever glucose simply isn't there. It does not panic and it does not crash because you have effectively become fuel agnostic in every meaningful sense. And freedom, that genuine independence from the constant need to eat, changes absolutely everything about how you move through life. You are no longer controlled by your stomach, no longer a slave to the clock, the drawer, or vending machine. You decide when you eat based on your own goals and schedule, not because your body is throwing a tantrum. Now imagine yourself 10 years from today, then 20, then 30 years further down this same road ahead of you. Most men are living through a slow, seemingly inevitable decline, their bellies expanding while their energy evaporates year after year, their testosterone plummets over time, and eventually they need pills for blood pressure, pills for cholesterol, and pills to function. They shuffle through their 50s and 60s, feeling like faded shadows of the dangerous men they once used to be. But you were different because you have low visceral fat since you finally learned how to master the insulin game. Your hormonal profile looks like a man half your age because you protected it through decades of intelligent, consistent fasting. You are no longer dependent on a snack pack to function normally because you have become resilient and anti-fragile.
You are the guy at 50 who looks dangerous, sharp, and capable, while everyone else around him has faded away. And here is something nobody ever tells you about hunger, the very feeling most men have been taught to fear. Hunger is not an actual emergency. It is a passing signal, a small piece of temporary biological information, nothing more. We have been conditioned for years to treat every hunger pang like a 5-alarm fire, demanding immediate panicked attention. But hunger comes in waves. It rises, it peaks, and then it naturally passes away entirely if you let it. If you can sit quietly with it for even 20 uncomfortable minutes, you will notice that wave fade and disappear. And every single time you practice acknowledging that signal without immediately reacting to it, you build real, lasting mental mastery. Self-control, built patiently, one uncomfortable moment at a time, is honestly the ultimate true definition of genuine masculinity itself. When you stop being a slave to the fridge, you stop being a slave to every fleeting impulse you feel. You become genuinely sovereign over your own body, perhaps for what truly feels like the very first time in years. Here is the one line I want you to carry with you and remember long after this moment is past. Feasting is the celebration of life, but fasting is the cleansing of it, and you need both to feel whole. You need the abundance, the joy, and the genuine social connection comes from sitting down to a great meal together. But you also need the discipline, the reset, and the quiet purification comes from stepping away from that same table. This is the rhythm of a powerful life, expansion and contraction, feast and fast, cycling endlessly, one after the other. You did not come here today to be entertained for a few passing minutes before moving on with your day. You came here to evolve, to reclaim fire, and to become the dangerous, capable man you were meant to be.